Welcome to this explainer. Let's jump right in, because today we are diving into a groundbreaking clinical study that is exploring a highly novel approach to treating alcohol addiction. We're going to look at actual patient journeys from a trial investigating psilocybin-assisted psychotherapy. Now, if you've been following mental health research, you already know this is a rapidly evolving field, but honestly, it's the human stories behind all that data that truly bring the science to life. 40. Just think about that for a second. For an astonishing 40 years, clinical research into psychedelic therapy was completely halted. It was literally locked away. But recently, a modern renaissance has sparked, and rigorous, scientifically controlled trials are now showing incredible promise for treating severe conditions like depression, anxiety, and, as we'll see today, alcohol use disorder. So here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with a radically old treatment, then explore 3 incredible patient journeys: Mark's clean slate, Rob weathering the storm, and Lisa's perfect creation. After that, we'll look at the common thread of healing and wrap up with our takeaways and next steps. All right, Section 1, a radically old treatment in a modern clinical setting. Okay, we've got to clear up a massive misconception right off the bat. Psychedelic therapy is definitely not just handing someone a magic pill and saying, poof, you're cured. This scientifically controlled study uses a carefully guided 3-step process. First, there's extensive therapy preparation to build trust and set intentions. Second is the actual dosing session, strictly supervised by trained professionals. And third, which is arguably the most important part, is integration therapy. That's where the patient and therapists work together to process the experience and apply those insights. It is hard, structured work. Moving on to Section 2, Mark, a clean slate and a desire to stop drinking. Mark's story brilliantly illustrates the absolute severity of what we're dealing with here. Guy was only in his 20s, yet he struggled with incredibly intense binge drinking. He was sometimes consuming a staggering 22 drinks in a single day. I mean, that is just a massive amount of alcohol. And it was leading to frequent damaging blackouts, forcing him to miss work for days at a time. He tried traditional treatments. He went to hundreds of support meetings, but absolutely nothing was sticking. So during his first guided session with the medication, Mark actually encountered his deepest fears about failure. The effects were relatively mild for him physically, but mentally, he found profound clarity. He described the whole experience with deep awe, calling it almost like finding the Holy Grail. In a later session, Mark was confronted by the really harmful effects his drinking had on himself and the people he loved. But instead of spiraling into despair, he felt this overwhelming wave of joy. He realized he was being handed a totally blank slate. And the absolutely crucial point here is that this powerful realization gave him a renewed sense of purpose. It led to complete abstinence from alcohol, a sobriety that was still holding incredibly strong 2 years later when he checked in with the research team. Let's look at Section 3, Rob weathering the storm and confronting intense pain. The sheer scale of Rob's baseline addiction was just off the charts. Out of the 84 days prior to joining the study, he drank heavily on 83 of them. Alcohol had completely derailed his life. It cost him a promising athletic career, his college education, his health was failing, and his drinking was deeply, deeply conflicting with his personal religious faith. Now, Rob's actual therapy session, it was physically miserable. He experienced intense nausea and literally spent the session fighting the effects of the medication. He sat completely upright, physically spitting into a wastebasket. But here is where the psychology gets fascinating. He perceived his saliva as swirling beer suds and interpreted the act of spitting as expelling his toxic shame, his resentment, and his anger completely out of his body. He actually described weathering this intense storm as agonizing, later saying that nothing ever felt worse than those 2 hours. I mean, this completely subverts that popular idea that psychedelic therapy is just a fun, easy, or colorful trip, right? For Rob, it was a grueling, grueling ordeal. Yet, bravely confronting that pain was exactly what he needed. It catalyzed massive, positive life changes. Surviving that ordeal gave him this whole new sense of urgency to fix his life. He found self-forgiveness, secured a new job within a month, went back to school, and stayed completely abstinent from alcohol. The struggle itself literally became the source of his strength. Which brings us to Section 4, Lisa, a perfect creation and overcoming self-criticism. Lisa used alcohol a bit differently than Mark or Rob. She was drinking mainly to cope with a deeply painful family history of childhood abuse and neglect. She just felt completely alienated from the world, totally consumed by heavy, negative self-talk. For her, Alcohol was an escape from her own highly critical mind. During her session, Lisa moved through an incredibly confusing and chaotic mental state. But underneath all of that, she found a deep well of sadness. And as she finally surrendered to it, her thoughts quieted down. She vividly heard a whispering inner voice validating her existence with unconditional love. It told her a secret, that she was a perfect creation of the universe. That beautiful, vivid realization systematically dissolved her self-critical thoughts. The voice kept asking if she believed it, breaking down every single defense she had until she finally accepted it. And this gave her a lasting sense of peace that fundamentally repaired her relationship with alcohol. She didn't become entirely abstinent, but she vastly reduced her drinking, achieving her specific personal goal of just feeling safe and healthy in her own body. Section 5, the common thread of healing and how unique needs were met. As you can see, there is clearly no single right way to experience this treatment. The experiences were highly variable. Mark found joy and renewal, Rob found agonizing catharsis, and Lisa found profound love and acceptance. Yet all three experiences successfully met the highly unique psychological needs of each patient to produce incredible real-world results. The medicine seemingly adapted to exactly what each individual needed to confront in order to heal. And this brings us to a really fascinating shared psychological outcome. A crucial benefit they all shared was a newfound feeling of what researchers call spaciousness. It's this incredible mental state where the inner noise, the anxieties, and the physical cravings simply do not have the power to overwhelm them anymore. Lisa described it perfectly. Negative thoughts might still bubble up, but in this new big room in her mind, they just seem so little and manageable now. Finally, Section 6. Takeaways and next steps for the future of treatment. The clinical takeaways here are absolutely striking. The study shows that vivid, memorable moments during this specific therapy can reliably lead to increased self-compassion and decreased craving. It completely reshapes how we understand human behavioral loops. It proves that addiction treatment doesn't have to be one-size-fits-all. When paired with rigorous psychotherapy, these treatments achieve patient-specific recovery goals by getting right down to the root of the emotional pain. Because this reshapes our entire understanding of healing, it highlights exactly why we must continue to heavily support and fund innovative, rigorous mental health research. The data we have right now is incredibly promising, but we absolutely need larger, continued clinical trials to bring these potentially life-saving treatments out of the shadows and into mainstream medicine, where they can safely help millions of people. And that leaves us with a truly inspiring thought to ponder as we wrap up today's explainer. When properly guided and supported, could the key to overcoming our deepest, darkest struggles already be waiting to be unlocked right within our own minds? Thank you so much for joining me today, and as always, keep learning.